Today's program, what we're going to talk about is team building. Now, most people go, well, gosh, why would we even want to talk about, hi, Gino, why would we want to talk about team building at work? Well, because you are a team. When I say, who are you rooting for this year?
Buckeyes.
The Buckeyes, yeah. The Browns?
Yeah.
You're praying for the Browns, right? Not rooting for them, you're praying. Yeah, they seemed like they were going to get off to a pretty good start, didn't they? And then I'll end it right there. Do you root for anybody? You root for anybody?
Vikings.
The Vikings, oh, okay. We automatically we think about sports. But I really want to think outside of the box today. Sure, we're going to talk about the review of OSHA compliance. But if we just talked about topics, that's really inappropriate. I mean, I can just say topic, and we go, yeah, we've done that. And quite honestly, as municipals go, I could probably throw some questions at you, and you guys could not only bring it up and answer it, but you could probably teach it probably just as well as I do. Compliance safety means nothing unless we work together to make it happen. And when the little poem I put up there by Marianne Williamson, the first part of it is our deepest fear is not that we're inadequate. Our deepest fear is really that we're powerful beyond measure. That scares us. It's really our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. I'm going to talk about successes, and I'm going to talk about failures, and I'm going to talk about why it's so important to fail. That, gosh, if you didn't have the opportunity to fail, what would winning be? And winning isn't just getting a trophy. I have a 30-year-old daughter, 15-year-old son, and when my son was a younger lad, he played t-ball. And I'm not much into sports, but my son wanted to play it, so I supported, and I went to every game that I could while I was in town. And I noticed something, and I don't mean to offend any parent here or coaches that are here, because I'm sure there's a good reason why they do it. But when my son's team lost, this team over here got the trophies. When my son's team lost, they got ribbons. Have you heard? You know where I'm going with this? They got these, participation ribbons. I'm not for that. If you are, I'm not trying to get into a debate. You lost. It's okay to lose. Not everybody's going to win. What are you going to do to better yourself to make it better the next time? So I think we kind of said, even if it's okay, we're just going to reward you. Now, we see this a lot with human behavior today, too. Do you know that there's some people that will never want to get up in the morning, just like you did this morning, and come to work? When it's provided, everything's provided to them free of charge. And I don't want to get too much into politics here, but I have a buddy. It's a good friend of mine. I love this guy like a brother. We don't cuddle like you two did this morning, and I think that's great. He's in the construction business, and I know a lot of people in different states. One of my buddies, he said, I wish I could just find 5 more guys that would show up to work, honest day's pay, honest day's work, and not come to work impaired. I have just the guy for you. He goes, you send him to me, I run a background check. If he can drive vehicles and he's in pretty decent shape, I'll start him out at $18.50 an hour. Now, that's a pretty decent start out. He goes, and as they go, he'll get a raise in 90 days, and then after that year, we'll probably get him around the $20 mark. That's a pretty good rate in Ohio. The latest poll was that if a person has a bachelor's degree, now I'm from Canton, Stark County. I don't know what it is down here. I know you guys get paid a lot of money down here, so I don't want to offend anybody here. But up in Stark County, if you have a bachelor's degree and you're making $12.50 an hour with medical benefits, forget dental and optical, you're doing good. That's pretty good. Now, these guys are never going to be able to pay their loans off, but at least they're, pretty decent making money. So I went to my friend, and I won't mention his name, and I goes, hey, listen, I got some pretty good news for you. I says, I have a buddy who says if you start tomorrow, and he'll even forward you your tools, and you can pay him whatever he agreed to. He's looking just for good workers. And he says, thank you so much, Kyle. I really appreciate that. I've been looking for a job. He says, but for that amount of money, he says, I wouldn't make the same of getting, my child care, because he has 3 kids. His wife left him. Child care, his food stamps, his welfare, the WIC card, the child. And I'm not taking anything against anybody. But he started to explain to me why you're going to be more financially better off not to work than to go to work. And I don't know where we ever got to a point where we said, listen, it's just probably better just to stay home. I know, Gino, you'd probably like just to stay home and have everybody come and just pay you just to sit there, right? We all have in us, we realize you got bills, you got families, you got to come to work. There's not one person in here that doesn't have some type of anxiety or some type of obstacles at work. And I know I've shared these timetables before, but we spend 8 to 10 hours a day with the people we work with, and if we're fortunate, if we're lucky, if we're proactive, 2.5 hours of good quality time with our biological families. We become related. Team building is extremely important in the workplace so that we work together as a team. We understand that it's very important for us to be open, too, with how we feel. And sometimes that's a little difficult. Some people don't want to express, they think it's going to be a conflict. Conflict's beautiful. Conflict is good. Unresolved conflict is bad. Now, the reason why you disagree, because we think that they're automatically going to, but it really doesn't happen that way. What I have found, and I've done this for 28 years, when I sit down with you and say, listen, I have a little conflict, but I really want to work it out with you. I've been working with you for 5 years, and I'm kind of have this conflict, and my work relationship with you is very important. Can we talk this out? How would you react to that?
I think that'd be great.
Most people would, but we automatically think because of our past experiences. Boy, that was pretty good osmosis, right? Because of past experiences, we think all of them are going to be that way. It's the package we delivered in. But when we have a good relationship, when we're working, we work better as a team. And the only way we're going to really apply safety where we're watching each other's back is through a team effort. So that's what this program is about. So sit back, relax, and allow me to share my perspective of what team building is as applied to the safety world at work. I love my visuals. Our goal and objective in this very short period of time, I always like to say that because people go, oh my gosh, how long is this going to take? Not much, because the concepts that I'm going to share are things that you probably already know, but it really reminds all of us why we need to continually bolster these concepts with one another. We're going to embrace and share our strengths. Now, we may not get into that too much because this really is a 4-hour block. But I would venture to say that there's a lot that you don't know about the person you've worked with for maybe 10 plus years because you've never talked to them about it. There's some people here that speak another language. Anybody here speak another language? What do you speak? Pig Latin?
Pretty much.
Yeah. My mother-in-law, I adore my mother-in-law. I goes, hey, do you speak another language, Mom? She goes, oh yeah. She goes, I speak hillbilly. I go, What is that? She goes, oh, trust me, you go down West Virginia, you're a hillbilly. I goes, well, what is your ethnicity? I'm hillbilly. I goes, there is no land of hillbilly, Mom. Oh, she goes, oh yeah, you go West Virginia. And I went down with her, and I think I agree. It's a whole life in itself, but I absolutely adore my mother-in-law. But she states that hillbilly is another language. Anybody here speak another language? Nobody? A little bit? You can speak something? You can speak one little bit? What do you speak, Italian? Yeah, can you give us an example of that? Thank you. How do you say thank you? How do you say thank you in Italian?
How do you say what?
Thank you.
Grazie.
Grazie. And how do you say I love you like is your wife?
I don't love
I bet you if I ask you what are the vulgar words, you come up with those, right? You don't have to, he's like, oh, okay. Yeah.
It's
Ti amo. Okay, thank you. And what else
I don't know. My fiance is fluent in it.
Okay, that's awesome. Who here plays instruments? What do you play? I beg your pardon? Trombone. Does everybody know that? Probably not. We really don't sit down and say, hey, let me share a little bit about who I am. And amazingly enough, I found that to be true with people that have 15 plus years that they've worked. They had no idea really about that person. We just kind of come to work and go on autopilot. Now, I'm not saying we all got to gather around a fire, hold a hand, and sing Kumbaya, but we have relationships, and those relationships are important. And a good balanced relationship at work is important, no different than our biological ones, because if we don't support those, they fall to the wayside, no different than what we have at work. I'm going to identify the importance of team, which is an acronym. Once you see it, it's obviously an easy acronym. I'm going to once again reinforce the importance of emotional intelligence, which is knowing self, knowing others, motivating yourself, and being able to have that relationship by being able to manage your emotions and manage the emotions of others. Why we are losing the art of communication, and I'm not talking about how eloquently and the big words we speak, because quite honestly, if I have somebody that stands in front of me and states that they want to get into a quid pro quo, I'd much rather slap the spit out of their face. And once again, I'm not a volatile person, but I'd much rather talk to somebody who's communicating to me. It's not using big words, but it's the connection piece. I challenge each and every one of you guys, and I did this about 3 weeks ago. Don't want to do anything up here. You're never going to change him. But now they take this when they know they got to get into action. This is a team. There's nobody here that will debate the fact that this is a team that came together. Nobody didn't say that's not how we do it on our shift. And they pulled this man out, his leg, he lost this leg. Now, as they pull him out, and I stop this because another group comes in, they pull him out of the screen, and then you just see a burning car. And that car catches on fire. And it's not like you see in the movies with a big boom, an explosion, but the tank did ignite. And it was a small explosion. They pulled him away. He survived. And if it wasn't for the coming together of a team that go, man, things are tough, we got to do something. Once again, Americans, human beings are pretty amazing. We're pretty resilient. When we jump up, we have to do something, we get it done. And when something happens, when things bad, even on a reactionary basis, we'll still come back and do it better than the last time. You're watching the building of the One World Trade Center. Every man and woman who looked at the architectural plans of this, the engineers, the people that built this from steel, concrete, glass, wiring, will be able to look upon this and say, my hand was part of building this. We as Americans do not go quietly into the night when we're attacked. We come back bigger, better than what we ever were before. When you see something like this, it makes me proud to be an American and know that there are men and women out there that make things like this. This is an unbelievable miracle. The people that built this will be able to bring their kids and say, I had a hand in that. Maybe their grandkids, and some people even their great-great-grandkids. Say, my grandpa, my great-grandpa, my great-great-grandpa helped to build that. Do you understand the relevance of this? Do you understand what these squares are right here? How many people have been there? It's hollowed ground. There's no way to explain it. I was there 3 days after the attack, and my wife and I, my son, and my daughter's a nurse. We've been back a couple times now. And the sounds, what do you hear when you're standing right there? It's a very distinct sound. And then you can also hear the wind. And it almost sounds like a light howl that goes through. It's very sobering. You know, when 9/11 happened, you could see these banners up. We will never forget. You know, I can tell you this, and it's very saddening for me, Westerville hasn't forgotten. Because I tell you what, around 9/11, I can come to Westerville, and I know you guys have a memorial here. I know it, because I went to one. The last 2 years in Canton, Ohio, I called around Canton. Canton hasn't had one for the last 2 years. Massillon, Akron. The only two places that I had the option of going was Paynesville and Westerville. You haven't forgotten. I'm not blaming anybody. It's just a scientific observation. We don't need a catastrophic event to be the best that we can be. We just need to see the value of what we have now and realize what it would be if we lost it. We've experienced loss, but why do we have to wait till it happens before we do something? That's the relationships that we have with each other. We can't take it for granted. We have relationships here. So what makes a great team? Now that you see, I'm not talking about football, I'm not talking about basketball, even though it does apply. What truly makes a great team?
Well, the first thing I think of is iron sharpening iron. You know, ideas coming together. Or
Well, and with that, you're going to have conflict. Like we were talking about a little bit, you were saying conflict. Oh, but when you have two great minds, and I'm looking around, you have some really good ideas. And if you had some really good ideas, there's going to be conflict. That's good. And like you said, of forging steel, eventually you get to a point where maybe you agree to disagree, but however, you have two ways of doing something. What else makes a good team? Anybody? Communication is probably one of the major pieces of your team effort, because without it, there's no direction. And thank you for bringing that up. The experts say that communication is 70% listening. Because if I'm not listening, there's no receiving end. You can be talking into the air and nothing happens. So when somebody is saying something, we need to stop for a second and appreciate what they're saying and take it in. What else, Coach, is a good thing for team?
We get buy-in of the participants of what you're going to do.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about that. That goes into the two pillars we're going to talk about. How do you do that? How do you get people to buy? Because you can just put a poster up there. It's not going to get buy-in. And there are different strokes for different folks. You can't have one message and everybody go buy in. There's some people go, well, wait a minute. What's in it for me? Or wait a minute. What angle are we going here? So how do you do that? How do you get the buy-in?
Some of it, I think, just staying out of the way, that you got to let your people do what they're going to do.
Which is this three things that I'm going to talk about. It's called AMP, and I'll get to that in just a second, that supports what you just said, and the experts have proven this. This AMP system, if you have some time, I've read this book 5 times, it's by Daniel Pink, and it's not his ideas. He's just compiled all of the ideas of different types of tests and measurements, like I'd mentioned, from sociology, psychology, economists. They've even done these tests at MIT. And it's obviously they're what motivates us to do good at work. Money's a wonderful motivator, but once you take this off the table, they found over these tests and measurements, it's not really money that motivates people. It goes back to what you said. 3 things: autonomy, mastery, and purpose. Everybody, including myself, was hired to do a specific job. The days of taskmaster, crack the whip mentality went out in the 80s, and probably even earlier than that. Your bosses hired you to do a specific job, and a good boss, somebody who trusts you, will give you the skills to be able to perform your job and go, listen, you probably have some really cool ideas, let me just get out of your way and let you do them. And that's the reason why you get some of these people that play guitar or music, and they go to the coffee shop and they play for free. What, they're not getting any money? No, it's because they enjoy playing music. They like how people have an impact with it. The next one is that whatever we do, even if we're a toilet cleaner, we'd like to do a good job. There's not one person in here and go, you see that over there? We constructed that. See how it's angling? It's not supposed to do this, be straight up and down, but we screwed it up. We screwed it all up the hell and back. That was me that did that. Nobody here wants to do that. Just like the One World Trade Center. People want to say, listen, I had a hand in that, and they want to do a good job. Most people do not want to come to work and screw things up. They want to do a good job. And we need to give, and as bosses, we need to validate that to them. You know, you did a good job. If the only time I take you to the side is when you screw up, that's inappropriate. That's very inappropriate, because that means that you're only important to me when you screw up. You know, and we as parents realize that too, but it's also prevalent and important at work. Last but not least, when we go home and we owe no more to the day, we'd like to know we serve some form of a purpose. And that's individualized, some form of a purpose. Just like the building. The purpose was we came back bigger and better than what we were. The purpose was I come to a team that's expecting me to come to work and do my share. And if I don't do my share, as we're going to see here in a little bit, it's going to have an impact. But with all good feats, some, if not all of us, will fall flat on our faces. Now this goes back to the conflict piece. It's so amazing why we are so afraid to fail. And I think, once again, we're giving a bad message to our kids. When their team didn't win, you get nothing. I'm going to take you to get some ice cream. I'm going to love you and go, hey, you did a great job. I'm proud of you. But you get nothing. They won. They get the trophies. You get nothing. Other than my love and support and saying, hey, listen, you did a good job. What are you going to do different next time? That's the entitlement. We're almost programming an entitlement. I'm going to get something. No. I'll tell you a little story about me. I was a gymnast and a wrestler growing up. I was actually hoping to be Olympic bound until I ripped a hamstring, and it kind of took me out of, it was 155 pounds. Man, I could do a round off 3 back handsprings, jump up, do a double backed up, and land right on a dime. And this cute little redheaded girl said, hey, you want to go out roller skating? I go, I don't know how. She goes, well, I'll teach you. Well, she was so cute. How could I say no to that? I want to get on those things. At least I get to be able to be with this cute little redheaded girl. So I put these roller skates on, and boy, I tell you what was the worst thing I had ever done. I kid you not, I was there for 3 hours. I fell so many times, I can't even count. My buttocks hurt for a week. Now, I'm a young teenager. A mother finally came over to me and said, excuse me, what is your name? I said, Kyle. She goes, please sit down, I want to talk to you. And as she looked into me with these, and I can still remember her face, she had these beautiful brown eyes, and she goes, I've watched you for the last hour. Fall, get up, fall, get up, fall. I have to applaud you. You don't give up. You just keep going on and on and on. I goes, yes, ma'am. She goes, please take the roller skates off. She goes, if you fall one more time, my liver's going to hurt. Every time you fall, I do this. She goes, you're literally hurting me and making me ill watching you. She goes, you know, there's certain things that are just not for people, and roller skating's not for you. Now, so what my big takeaway from that is, if I said now being 55, I'm going to be the heavyweight champion of the world, that's just not going to happen. I have to be realistic. I'm going to be the president of the United States. There are going to be people who go, you can do whatever you want, put your mind to. Well, in some instances, yes. I'm going to be a brain surgeon. Would you like to be one of my patients? No. You know, not that somebody can't do it, but in my brain, the way that my brain works, it's not a good plan for me. But you know, there are a lot of things that we have that we're being realistic of wanting to be a boss, to get maybe a different job, or promote yourself. Now, those are realistic goals. But I guarantee you there are some people here that have failed multiple times, fell flat on their face, and you look like one of them. And I mean even literally, and sometimes things just didn't work out with you. I guarantee you failed on some things. Yeah, big ones. Whether that be at work or at home, you failed. Never failed in your life at anything? But you know, those of us that have, and I failed horribly in a lot of things. Horrible. But you know, those people that failed, they'll tell you that's when you do succeed, the more hardest that the challenge can be, the greater the reward. And so, looking at that, there were a lot of people that were famous, that became famous because of their failures.
Turned down by the Decca Recording Company, who said, we don't like their sound, and guitar music is on the way out. A failed soldier, farmer, and real estate agent. At 38 years old, he went to work for his father as a handyman. Cut from the high school basketball team, he went home, locked himself in his room, and cried. A teacher told him he was too stupid to learn anything, and he should go into a field where he might succeed by virtue of his pleasant personality. Fired from a newspaper because he lacked imagination and had no original ideas. His fiancée died. He failed in business twice. He had a nervous breakdown, and he was defeated in 8 elections. If you've never failed, you've never lived.
You know, I think if I failed in 8 elections, I don't think I'd go for the 9th. Maybe 2 or 3, but you know, that's just how some people are programmed. They will not allow failure to affect them in any way, shape, or form. What they want to do is succeed. They want to knock it out of the park. So is communication something that we are good at, or is it a lost art? I shared this with you before, but how many people choose to communicate with their iPhones? Wonderful device. But the more and more I keep talking about this, the more and more I see little examples of how people communicate. Once again, I talked about my boss before. But just a couple weeks ago, she sent me an email. I have really one of the best bosses in the world. I really respect her. She's a very smart boss. She's a very fine boss. She really gives me the opportunity to have AMP, autonomy, mastery, and purpose. But sometimes bosses will email you and ask you your input. Well, I called her and gave her my input. And she goes, well, you could have emailed me back. I goes, but I gave you 2 variables. I gave you 2 answers. Which one do you want? Are you going to send me back an email to question me on the 2 answers? Then I'm going to give you now 4 answers for that? How many times do we email before we go, maybe chances are it's best to communicate? Now, she realized that, and I have no problem sharing that, and she's pretty open-minded. But she could clearly see what I was saying. You know what? You're right. Some people prefer to communicate on, and technology is wonderful, don't get me wrong. But I think it was meant to just be small things, like my wife will text me, don't forget to get bread or milk or something like that. Or from time to time, she'll send me little hearts, the emojis. I love you, miss. Okay, those are kind, yeah. But long, drawn-out conversations. And amazingly enough, these big chats where people are just, for hours. Just call the person and talk to them. And we are losing and we have tremendous impact on our words. But do you realize when we use our words, the impact isn't what's coming out of our mouth, but it's how we're feeling, what we're thinking about them? Trust me when I say that your thoughts have tremendous vibration. It's not what you say, it's really what you're thinking about when you say it. And trust me, if I'm being sarcastic or I'm upset with you and I'm sarcastic, you'll read it a mile away. Anybody here will do that. I can say the same sentence and mean 2 things. Do you have kids?
Absolutely.
How old are they?
21, 19 and 24.
Okay, that's pretty good. Remember when they were really young and you needed a babysitter?
Loved it.
Did you have a
They were-
babysitter?
yeah, they were
Yeah. Ask me if now let's go back in time and place and think about you needing a babysitter, knowing that my wife and I, we want grandkids really bad. So ask me if I'll babysit your kids.
Will you babysit my kids?
Yeah, I'll babysit your kids. I love kids. Now ask me again.
Will you babysit my kids?
Yeah, I'll watch your kids. I love kids.
Point taken.
Well, I said the same thing. I didn't really change it that much, just my tone, my body language, my eyes.
Who knew you could be so creepy?
Isn't it creepy? Yeah. But trust me, when you're thinking about something, people will read it. If your mind isn't there, trust me, your thoughts have tremendous vibration, and that's what has an impact. When I'm talking to you, you can tell those people that are really, they talk the talk, they walk the walk, because they feel it. If I'm not really being sincere, it could be because of what's in my mind. So remember that it is the impact of what we're feeling and how we say those words too.
What did you do to my sign?
I wrote the same, but in different words.
Thanks, love.
Well, that's putting things into perspective, isn't it? So it's not really what I really mean. It's really the way that I present it that has the biggest impact. So what do great communicators possess? We understand what a team entails, but to communicate, like you said, communication is really one of the biggest keys, and you're right on. I got to know where I stand with my team, and they got to know where I stand, where my position is. It's a two-way street. So you're right. Communication is huge. So what do good communicators do?
Clear message.
Yeah, they're clear, they're precise, they're direct. We've already talked about listening. They have good listening skills because that's really the major component of communication. What else? You guys didn't know I was going to have you guys put in part of this program. Do you know what else do good communicators do? That's the lost art. That's it. It's fairness. It's compassion. Now, I'm not expecting people this morning it was a wonderful example where you guys cared for each other. Like I said, the leg was a little bit over top, but you guys cared for each other. And you guys are friends with each other. But compassion is the lost key. And that gets sticky for some people because, oh my gosh, if I say compassion, well, then that must mean love. Ooh, now I really said the killer word. Looking at somebody and go, I love you. I'm not saying you got to do this, but really, isn't that what compassion's about? The love for people? And I think that it gets sticky for some people. I understand that. But what could be better than to bond with another because of the respect and compassion that you have for them? It comes to values. People support what they create. A team, this is the acronym, and it's true. Together, everyone achieves more. And sometimes that more is much greater than what you ever thought it would be. Like in emergencies, like when we have time restraints and we get it done and we get it better. We actually finished it before the deadline. Here's the obstacles that are going to stand in your way. You have to have trust. Any relationship that has a failed trust level will disintegrate. If a husband and wife do not trust each other and they don't work on that, their relationship will disintegrate. We got to have trust. And see, sometimes people have trust issues. That's not abnormal. I have a little trust issues. But if it's with somebody else or somebody, I'll try to communicate that so that I know where I stand with them. The next one is conflict. Please change the way you look at conflict. Conflict is absolutely wonderful and necessary to a good team. Unresolved conflict is bad. Commitment. Everybody does their part. We have a goal. It's a plan. Let's come in just like a coach gets everybody committed. Now, some people will give a lot more to this commitment than others, but everybody needs to do their part. Accountability. Now, the accountability isn't to the boss. The accountability is to yourself. Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. Who said that? Yeah, you're good. So what that means is that don't come here. I'm not going to come to work and go, well, gosh. And there seems to be this trend. I'm coming to work for you. You owe me. What am I going to get? Now, obviously, we come to work to be able to pay our bills. But if I'm coming to work, I have some skills. I'm a good worker, and I want to be a good part of this team. And last but not least, you have to see results. If an individual is on this bodybuilding exercise, or maybe they're in a weight loss exercise, over 90 days, if they see no results, they will quit. You have to have results. So how do we know that we have results? We go back to what you said. Communicate. And we have to have the compassion to do it. And if we don't communicate with one another, where do we stand with each other? We will never get there. So maybe you're doing it in a certain way, like your tailgate meetings. Maybe you're doing it individually. Whatever way you come to that connection, that's an important piece of the equation. Now here's the plan, and it's pretty simple. We can learn from those who have gone before us. Now this is in corporate America from 2015 to 2014. And adaptability to change, nobody likes change, but we went up a little bit in 2015 from 54% of the people wanting to do this to 60%. But we went down on a little strategic thinking. And a lot of that is maybe because bosses won't allow people that autonomy. Integrities went down. Good communication skills have gone down. All of the tested measurements are showing that it's because we're using more and more technology. Now, technology is wonderful, but when we look to it to do almost all of our communication, what some people do, it's going to have an impact. Being trustworthy and open went down. Vision. That went up a little bit. Develops a diverse team. We're realizing if we want to make an impact, we have to use all of our group. That's went up a little bit. Delegation went down, and one of the biggest reasons they found is a lot of bosses don't want to delegate. Maybe they feel it's not going to get done. Maybe if they're accountable for it, they don't want this person. But you know, the other thing is that you don't know that person's ability, and you're really holding that person back. A positive mindset, that went down. A lot of people have not a good outlook on work, 26%. And then high self-awareness. Now, we went up a little bit on that because we realized we're not happy with the way things are. We got to change something. So here are the two pillars of morality. It's reciprocity, that's fairness, as if you're doing your share, I'm going to help the other 50%. And then compassion, empathy. That's it. I mean, you would think that it'd be like a list of 10 things that we got to do. 50, and compassion for that person. Now, they've done tests all the way back in the 30s. 1937 was one test I'm going to show you. And they found that even chimpanzees react pretty much the same way as Americans do. You know, as a matter of fact, the DNA setup of a chimpanzee is more closer to the human than the chimpanzee is to the gorilla. So what they did was they got these two chimpanzees. They had to work together as a team. They had to pull this rope, and they had this big weighted crate, and it was just weighted enough so they could barely move it. Now, the goal, the driving force, was at the end of it, they got oranges, apples, lemons, and bananas. So anytime that they wanted, and they did this for 2 weeks, and this is what happened. Both of them realized in order to get the reward at the end, they both had to work together as a team. Now, this is heavy, but they know what the reward is at the end. Now, this probably looks like a couple of your coworkers that you work with, that they're working together. Okay, we got to get this done. The sooner we get this done, the more we can get lunch. At the end there, and it worked pretty much the same way. Every single time they did it, they worked together, fairness, compassion, reciprocity, and, you know, they could, you know, like we do. We get this job done, we can go back and maybe, you know, go home early that day. Same thing. Well, what they did is they changed it up for the next 2 weeks. And they took this chimp right here, and they gave him his bananas and apples and oranges anytime he wanted. He'd have to work for it. Now this one here, they gave him a crate that was half the weight and half the size. Anytime he wanted that, he had to pull that himself to get it. Now this one here, they just fed him through the corner. Got it anytime he wanted. There was no motivation for him to go to work and work when he had everything free. So when they, after 2 weeks, introduced the crate back, the heavy one, which requires 2 chimps to work together, this is what happened. Now, the one on the left is thinking, why do I have to work when I'm going to get this for free? He's like, get back here, go to work. Why do I have, this is way too heavy. He may not be in the same shape as the one on the right because he's had to work. Does this look like anybody you know? And then he went to the corner and just, you know, hey, listen, by gestures, he was wishing, you know, get over here, I need your help. If not for you, for me, you know, yeah, you get it. See, he's looking at the gate to see if he's going to get his free stuff, and it ain't coming yet. So he keeps looking at it, am I going to get my free stuff? No, because they fed him back there at that one location. So finally, as it comes up, watch what the chimp on the right does. He worked harder for it, 75% harder. Watch what he does. He takes his stuff and he takes his. Why? I worked harder than you. Why should you get the same rewards as I do? I'm going to get mine, but I'm going to take part of yours too. And they found that the reward system still works the same thing even with Capuchins. Now, the favorite fruit of a Capuchin is a grape, sweet grapes. Now, they like vegetables. Cucumbers are okay, and all they got to do is pass a rock through one of those holes. So the one on the left passes a rock through the hole, and what's he get? He gets a reward. There's a cucumber. Now, cucumbers aren't so bad. They're kind of tasty, but now he's going to watch this Capuchin to the right. He passes the rock, and he gets a purple grape. Now, he sees that. Oh, wait, he got okay, well, here's a rock. Okay, give me my grape, just like him. What does he get? He gets a frickin' cute, what the? Yeah, he wants to get out of there and give me my grape, man. An honest day's pay for an honest day's work. What's wrong with that? So the one on the right passes the rock through. Give me the rock. Passes the rock. Now he gets another grape. Now that's the third one he's got. So, okay, so he takes the rock. He wants to make sure it's a brand new one. He hits it. Okay, it's a good rock. Okay, give me my grape. Now he's really gonna go off. He wants to rip her face off. We're no different. We have to make sure that we work together side by side and cover each other. And if there's something we don't see, don't feel like you want to rip somebody's face off. Communicate to them. You said it, and that's the missing thing. That's a missing link that a lot of these workplaces, that they're lacking communication. And what you said, those are the two things. You guys came up with it yourself. Compassion, communication. So as we walk on today, I want to challenge you, because there are a lot of things that maybe you wanted to do with each other, maybe in your personal life, maybe take a trip with a motorcycle with your family. You know, some people have some really cool plans. Some of you have had plans that you set out to do 10, 15 years ago, and you didn't follow through with them. We only got one life here. Whether it's at work or the things you want to do, old dreams never die. They just get filed away. They're still there. They're somewhere in a manila folder, and if you look up them in your brain and oh, there it is, you pull it up, it may be dusty, some cobwebs, but that dream that you wanted to do something, learn a new thing, go someplace, maybe bring closure to something, or build relationships, it's still there. Now, some of you guys, you've started something. Remember, become the artist of your own masterpiece. You've started something and you haven't finished it. It's just waiting for you. It's not going anywhere. It's waiting for you to decide to go back and finish it. So if this is speaking to two of you people and you go, you know what, you're right, I need to finish something, you do it, then I didn't waste my breath. Now some of you guys, I'm being honest, this is the best you're going to do. I mean, that's okay. At least your mom's going to take that and put it on the refrigerator, right? And if this is the best you can do, be happy with it. Be happy with it. But at least you followed through and you did it. And it could be something as simple as making a phone call of somebody that you hadn't talked for 15 years that you needed to bring closure with. You know, I've talked to so many people. Now, I was a counselor at one time in my life, and I talked to a lot of people that somebody died and they wanted to tell them something. They said, I should have told them I loved them before they died. I didn't do that. You know, I worked so much, I should have spent more time with them. Or I should have called them and told them how mad I was and bring closure to it. And now they don't. Now through counseling they can bring closure. But they'll never have that opportunity with that person again. So if there's something that's not finished for you today, carpe diem, seize the day, follow it through, do it today. But what I would propose is that every person in this room has it in them to create some form of a masterpiece. It may not be from your perspective a masterpiece, but to somebody else on the receiving end, it was just that thing that they needed to have. You know, I had a really tough day yesterday. Sunday was a tough day, and I won't go into personal. I had a really rough day. And it seemed like when everything else could have fallen flat on my face, I was at this one place, it's called Watkins Trading. It's kind of like, you know, those unclaimed freight comes in, and I'm going there and I'm looking for, you know, different things to get. And there was a DD young man, he was about 17 years old, developmentally disabled, formerly MRDD. And I'm just standing there looking at something. He comes up and just gives me a hug. And his mom goes, oh my gosh, no, you can't do that. And he just looked at me and smiled. Now, he doesn't articulate, he doesn't communicate. But he just looked up at me and was just, was he knowledgeable enough to read my body language knowing that I needed that? I would say yeah. Because he just looked at me, and when he smiled at me, my anxiety went down a lot. I started thinking about, gosh, I have a daughter and a son that they're healthy and they're happy and they're very high functioning. But this kid just came out of nowhere and just gave me a hug. And his mom, like, you can't just go hug everybody. Have you ever met somebody like that, developmentally disabled, and they just come up and they just, they just grab and hug you, you know, or touch you, or, you know, hi, how you doing? That was his masterpiece. He has still today, probably forgot it. His masterpiece is how it affected me. Never underestimate the impact of the masterpieces you create that have impacts on the people that you love as biological family, but the family you work with. And it may be, just may be, the thing they needed right now, today. So thank you. I hope I didn't go too far over the top with this. To some people, they think, man, it's a little over the top. But I think it's timely. As we get ready to go into the fall and then the holidays, I think we really truly do appreciate each other. So don't be afraid to let that person know how much. So thank you so much for allowing me to share this perspective. With this, you have a good safety program, and remember, safety is contagious. Don't be afraid to spread it. Thank you. Have a great day. Walk on with peace. If you need EPA hours, see me back here.